afternoon. Welcome to today's webinar, The Home Contractor's Ultimate Guide to SEO. I'm really excited to be your host today. My name is Amanda, and Steve is also here to help us with any of your questions throughout the webinar. In case you're not as familiar with Surefire and who we are, we're located in Northern Virginia, and our all-in-one marketing platform helps home contractor businesses drive visibility through all channels on the web so they can continue to grow their business with ease. Our mission here is to educate businesses on a variety of topics to help you succeed and help the industry grow. We want to know who you are too, so let us know where you're joining us from today. You can do that by using the chat box on the right-hand side of your screen. A few quick reminders before we begin. You'll get the recording of this chat tomorrow, and like I mentioned before, you can ask us questions, make comments, etc. in the chat box on the right-hand side of your screen. Because you're on the webinar with us right now, you have a chance to win a Google Home Hub that we'll be giving away at the end of this chat. Stay tuned till the end when we'll be announcing the winner. Today, we are really lucky to have our own Surefire SEO expert, Bob Sheehan, joining us. He's really passionate about customer success and helping businesses create a successful digital footprint. He's put together a really great presentation for you, so with that, I will pass it on over.
Thank you very much, Amanda, and I'm glad to be here today. Thanks for everybody for coming to the webinar, and I hope you've got about a half hour, 45 minutes to listen, and then if you've got any questions or concerns at the end and you'd like to kind of talk about anything, there'll be an opportunity to put things into the chat box and maybe get some additional questions answered. The whole idea behind today's presentation is to talk about this thing we call SEO, and in a way that will kind of bring it into today. As you know, a lot of things have changed, and so we're moving into kind of a new way to look at this. And I'm just looking for the forward button, and here it is. Okay. So the first kind of big question that we think about here is what is SEO? And for those of you who have been doing this digital marketing thing for more than about 4 years, you've seen this change a lot. Back in 2009, 2010, when we did this, it was a very different thing than it's evolved to now. Google has become much more, they've kind of buttoned down a lot of pieces of this and made this at least as much about best practices as it's made it about anything in particular that you might do. The concept of search engine optimization has become a much bigger question. It used to be that you could have a website, and that website maybe had 10 pages on it, and each page had some keywords on it, and you made the keywords right, and those pages started to show up in search, and you got leads. And at the time, there were probably 5% as many website pages as there are today, maybe even less than that, and so it was a lot easier to kind of show up. Now it's become much more about best practices and about doing the right thing across your website, and then beyond that, about optimizing your entire web presence, right? We think about things beyond the website. There's a number of things where you can make things happen for yourself that aren't website, and managing those activities and coordinating them across the largest footprint that you can create is really what SEO is, and really what's going to make it work for you, and how you're going to get the most, kind of ROI against all of those activities. So, we think about putting coordination in place, right? The idea behind this is to say, okay, I have all of these things I'm thinking about. I want to be able to coordinate those and to understand how doing some things impact, the doing of other things. So just kind of to set this up in a kind of where are we place, right? If you looked at the search engines today, and this actually is a little bit old, but Google's about 80% of search traffic. So when you're thinking about this, right, if you're you have all this work to do, all these things that have to get right in search engines in order to get the best results, then thinking about this as a Google problem is a good way to go, right? You've got so much bang for the buck there, and if we sit here and waste time thinking about what will happen in a search engine that's well under 1% of search activity, you're not going to get a lot of bang for that buck. but when you can get right with Google, and when you can make your internet presence set up properly so that it does well in Google, then you're going to get a return on those activities, and that's kind of how we think about it. So search has always offered a window into what people need and want, right, and intend to do. And what's going on now, it's even more true that the words, right, become conversational, right? We've seen the queries that people put into search engines, either on keyboards or in the way that they speak to the search engines, have become much more conversational, much more complex. It's language. It's no longer, typing in roofing contractor, Boston, Massachusetts, right? It's somebody saying into a phone that they might be actually holding in their hand. I'm in Boston and I need a roofer. Or even better, I'm in North Andover, Massachusetts, and I need a roofer. And that kind of search is much more long tail and much more, buyer intent oriented, and the whole thing is kind of moving in that direction. So what that means is that a very small percentage of searches now are those old kind of searches that we think about, right? The roofing contractor, Boston, Massachusetts, and much more about, interacting with the machine and trying to get from the machine what you want. So, Google is thinking about that clearly, and they're orienting the whole thing in that direction. But we are in an age of conversational search, and the answers to those questions become, what we think about in terms of producing content and distributing content and managing, what's going on across your whole presence. So here's a pretty important individual over at Google talking about customers expecting more, right? That not only do we want to understand what people are looking for, but we want to predict what they're going to be looking for in a little bit, right? People are in different places in their journey all the time, right? They may be just looking to find out information about something, or they may be looking to compare some different things that they need, right? And they may be in that kind of tire kicking area of the journey, or they may be ready to buy something, and we need to predict where they are and what they need at whatever place they're at, and we need to kind of be there in different ways so that they'll discover us, and obviously that brings traffic and leads. This is probably one of the more important things to know about consumers, right, and about the digital piece, the website, and everything else, is that 73% of your engagement with consumers is not going to happen on your website anymore. It used to be that, it was something like 100% of your engagement with a consumer online would be your website. Back in, 2005 to 2010, that's what it was. Now there's so much more going on. It's not only about this kind of first-party web traffic that comes to your website and lands on a page and decides to put in a lead or a phone call. It's now about business listings, right? Or it's about voice, which is kind of your website, but there's a lot of other components to it. It's about social media. It's about maps. It's about all these directory listings that are out there that can drive traffic to your site. So we need to be thinking about that stuff to make sure that you're properly oriented in all of those places that will add up to, higher visibility and more, ROI on those activities, right? So, and I'm going to talk a little bit about a website here. There's a couple of important components that are going on here. And then we'll spend some time talking about things that aren't your website as well, and how you can impact those kinds of things to do better online. So there's this key SEO features piece that has somewhat changed in the last few years. Some of it is new, and some of it's been around for a while. But certainly we've always thought about title tags. This goes back to the beginning of websites. There's always been, you manage title tags to reflect what's in a page, right? And does that page answer a customer's intent? If a customer is looking for a roofer, do we have a page that contains that not only on the copy, but in the title tags? And that's kind of an old method, but still valid, still something that we do. And then you get into things that really weren't around very long ago, like this robots.txt file that allows you to block off certain parts of the site and keep track of what kind of traffic you're getting and control what ends up being on your site. Or Schema over on the right now, which is a very important component of how we tell Google what kind of content is on that site and how they should index that site. Right now, only 44% of sites are even engaged in that, even thinking about it, right? So there's a huge opportunity for a lot of people to think about a component that helps to get them noticed more, to help them get higher visibility, depending on what kind of company or what kind of customer they are. They want to be able to spoon feed that information to Google, and that's a really good way to do it. So there are a lot of little components that need to be kind of thought about. We talk about third-party directories here, and you can see this is kind of an interesting approach. But when you're talking about organic search for business categories, you can see there's a very big difference between some of these directories and some others that are much less important, right? But if you're in Home Advisor, 21% of the time, those directories are going to show up in search, and Yelp is all over search. Yelp is very prominent in search. So if you're the kind of business that gets customers from Yelp, being present there and being right there is going to be very important. So managing that kind of stuff, managing what you look like there, how people talk about you, answering reviews, kind of managing your whole reputation in those ways is going to be really, really important. Google My Business reviews certainly impact rank, right? We've seen this in the last really the last couple of years. The more and more importance on reviews. Reviews have become the currency of visibility, right? When you have a lot of reviews, you get more present, and you start to see people behaving differently around your internet presence. People who see 1 and 3 star reviews, not only do you rank lower, but they don't interact with you the same as when you have a good number of 4 and 5 stars. So it becomes about being able to demonstrate that you're doing things well and that you're making customers happy, and doing that in a way that shows up on Google My Business is going to be a really important piece of this. It really helps to make sure that component helps everything else show up better. And all of that being true, right, it's pretty shocking that 56% of businesses out there haven't even claimed their GMB listing. So they're not even aware of it. It's not even something that they're thinking about. So imagine what's going to happen now when you have basically a doubling of the businesses that are, thinking about GMB and doing GMB better. And it's going to become a much more competitive environment. It puts much more pressure on the whole system to make sure that we're doing the right thing in those places. There's a concept called schema, right? And you can see there's lots of different kinds of schema here. This concept's been around for 4 or 5 years in a meaningful way, where we're able to take pieces of somebody's website, content that's on a site, and wrap it in this code that then allows Google to index that content in a way that tells them what's more important than other kinds of things, or what kind of content we have, right? You tell them this page has reviews on it, and this schema says here are the reviews, and here are the geo coordinates, right? Here's the place, here's the business information, here's the organization. And when you do that and make it easier for Google to index all of this content, you get rewarded with better results, better traffic, and we see those things show up in search in a much more significant way. So there's different kinds of this kind of stuff that we use, right? On the left, you can see there's a postal address, right? This is how we tell Google where a site is doing business. And then what happens is that gets matched up with a business record that's on Google My Business, and allows Google to verify the reliability of that information, right? In the middle, we've got one that's devoted to flagging for the search engine how the reviews are, what their aggregate rating is, for instance, and how many there are on a page, and where they are on a site, so that Google will know how to index that content, where to put it, and when to deliver it to a customer who might be looking for something. And then over on the right, and it may not be, this may not be an important one for everybody here, but if you're an author, for instance, and you live off of getting people to pay for your content, you certainly want to have a profile about you that talks about what kind of person you are, what you do, where you live, and that becomes kind of that single record of truth that then can be referenced on other things that you distribute across the internet, and gives you as an entity, as a personality, better visibility. So these things all are very important, and we try to coordinate all of this with everything else that's going on in somebody's web presence, so that we can have all of that work together and, become more visible. So you can see things have changed. There's some interesting components to this. If you go back even to, 15 years ago, this was all about keywords, right? We used to think about this in terms of, if I had a page and I put, 5 times I had a keyword on there, it would rank well. And if I doubled it and put it on there 10 times, I could get even better. That's no longer the case. This is about language, and it's about usable information, and about all of these other ways that the search engine judges this content, right? And at some point it became, about the quality of your content, and about the fact that it was unique, and that it wasn't spammy, and that it was, basically real and useful, right? And now it's about this whole concept of, I think about it as 4 stools, 4-legged stool, right? You've got recency. How frequently do you interact with your own brand and your own content? How relevant is that to what people are looking for? How you tell those people through the website and the things that aren't the website, how you tell everybody where you are, and that will determine where you're going to show up, right? If you're in Denver, then you need to be telling the search engine through your business listings and through your website where you are. You're in Denver, right? If you don't do that, then you're probably not going to show up there. And then prominence is all about the idea of having lots of this activity going on, and how big is your footprint, and how many times do people run into you, which is a really important factor when you're thinking about the idea that people need to see you a bunch of times before they'll ever put in a phone call or a form submission. It's not when somebody saw you once that they say, oh, here's my window company, or here's my siding contractor. They may have to see you more than 10 times before that happens. So this whole idea of prominence is really important. One of the ways we gain prominence is links. We've talked about that really for years. There's been this idea of linking, and linking now is about local content. It's about customers that are able to get themselves into places that notify people what's going on. Social media directories, event listings, sponsorships. Sponsorships are a really good way for somebody to, in a real way, to have an organization linking to you on their website, which will increase your own prominence. And you can notice that in the middle here, this whole idea of availability has come on the books, and that this is something that's happened really in the last year or two, where you can now go on Google, and for instance in Maps, you have a listing in Maps, and that listing will be present when you're open and not present when you're not. And when you provide that information, Google is going to be much more likely to show you when it matters, and to put you in front of the customers who need you when they need you. And if you don't make any effort to provide that kind of information, then you're not going to show up the same way as you would if you paid attention to that. So it used to be, search ads at the top, local in the middle, this whole idea of maps and listings, and then organic at the bottom. And there was a day when there were no ads, and then there was very little in the maps, and most of it was organic. And now Google has provided some space at the top for ads, and they've added this proximity component in the middle, this maps, which is all about directory listings and Google My Business. And then, the organic listings are still important, and they still provide a lot of traffic and a lot of results, they just become a little less visible on this homepage, this first page of Google that becomes so important. And then when you look at what it does today, how they've maneuvered this around, you can see they've even added above the paid piece, they've added what we call LSAs, or local service ads. And there's a Google guaranteed component of those that you pass the hurdle with Google, and you can get yourself, really right at the top of the page. And you can do that in a way that is a fixed cost per lead kind of approach for some categories. And Google has done a lot with that, right? You still have the ad. There's actually a little bit less space here for Google Ads. And then you've got the maps, and below that, you have organic, which actually isn't showing up very much on the first page of Google. On the mobile, you can see organic drops below the first page for sure. And then the first screen that you get when you go on Google for one of these categories, first screen is ads and local service ads. So it's now about prominence in those categories, and you can be prominent in organic, and you should be prominent in organic, but you also need to think about maps. You need to think about search ads, and then one of the key components of local service ads visibility is reviews. So you can see how the whole thing gets tied together, right? That if I'm managing my reviews and I'm managing the content on my site and I'm making sure that all of this stuff sings together, I can get much more visible than if I don't do that. So some basic component, kind of things, some basic structure things about websites that we need to know that will help in kind of if you were starting from scratch and you were saying, okay, I want to become more visible, I want to get more business from the internet. How should I build my website? We made this decision about 10 years ago to build everything on WordPress. And the reason we did that is because it builds in this kind of local signals, this Google search information. It allows for lots of customization, and you can own it, but you don't have to reinvent it every time you use it. That there's a community of people out there who upgrade and invent for WordPress, and those changes come to you free. So once you buy the original copy of it, it's done, and you have it on a platform that's going to grow with the world, right? And that's a really important thing. When you're building a website, we certainly want to make sure that Schema is there in the right places and to grab the right content and serve that up in a way that will become more visible. Local service areas, right? We've got some sites. This is a particular site that I've worked on in my life, where we've got over 130 different pages that establish the marketplace for these folks. That kind of thing is very important if you do it the right way, where you're using natural language, where you're not using duplicate content, where you're building pages that actually have meaning in those places. And so there's all kinds of things that have to happen, but typically it's some kind of content, right? And you're asking yourself, what are people looking for, and how do I provide content that will answer those questions? How do I help them find what they're looking for, right? If you take common questions and think about that and produce content that way, then you're going to be in a pretty good place, right? Now that Google is indexing lots of different kinds of content and providing a way to give people access to all of that kind of content, then you producing, just a blog or just a video or just a article is not going to be the same thing. You want to kind of have a multimedia kind of approach to this and do a lot of different things so that you can be a valuable resource for content for customers who are looking for what you do. And then you want to think about all stages of the customer journey. People are at various different stages all the time. You never really know. They could be looking, they could be comparing, they could be buying. You don't know. So you want to be able to kind of satisfy all of that and think about that in everything that you produce. So we have a thing called GeoJuice here, which is about local check-ins, where literally you can have a person on your team checking in when you're doing a job. And when that check-in goes on your online presence, that helps to set up the marketplace where you want to do business. That's been, in our experience, that's been an important way to get more visibility for these companies to kind of establish where they want to do business. And there's schema attached to those kinds of check-ins that helps you. It's a little bit like checking in on Facebook, except you're doing it in a way that it gets shared across online directories, and content on the website has this kind of signal in it, and it's very important. And then obviously we think about consistency and continually publishing content on the internet presence, because recency is a really important thing. And the way I think about it is if it's important to us, and by important to us we would demonstrate that by doing it often. If it's important to us, then it must be important to the customer. If we don't touch it, eventually the search engines will leave it alone as well, right? And so we talked a little bit about the idea of getting this local content published, and here are some ways that can happen. Local news stations can have websites, and sometimes they will link to you. There are lots of industry publications. There are chambers of commerce. I know many of my clients, members of chambers of commerce, that just provides them with an additional stamp of approval and a way for them to pass that approval across to the internet presence. So when you're thinking about websites, here are the web presence across things beyond website. Here are some of the components of that. GMB optimization. We do that on every customer. It's one of the first things that we'll ever do with anybody when they become a customer of ours, is to set up GMB the right way. NAP data, name, address, and phone number. That needs to match what's going on at GMB. If there's consistency across the Google My Business and the directory listings and the name, address, and phone number that's on the website, then you get trust across all of that network, right? So you want to be able to do that at scale. Geosignals, right? There's this whole idea of checking in and establishing where you're doing work and what kind of work you're doing, and pictures of that work. And that is all wrapped in schema and sends that signal to the search engines about where you physically are, so that it can understand where you need to be served up to a customer who might be looking for what you sell, right? There's lots of local sites. They vary by what market you're in and what city you're in, but if you're sponsoring the Little League team and they have a newsletter, you want to be in it. And if the Chamber of Commerce in your town has a website of partners, then you want to be there with a link to your website. You want to maybe have a calendar listing about what you might be doing, or events that might be happening at your business. All of that adds up to a robust online presence that's going to help you get found better, right? So this name, address, and phone number record across everything that you do becomes very important, becomes a trust factor, and has a significant impact in how you rank, right? We think about this online profile piece, very, very important. We want to claim and control this stuff. We use a technique where we can leverage one account with Yext into a lot of different business profiles, and then push out content across those in a very seamless way. We also want to find business profiles that might be unique to you, that don't necessarily reflect kind of what everybody else has, but to the extent that you have uniqueness in this stuff, we want to find that. Local citations, right? More visibility in local search comes from doing a better job with that. If you find that, right, if you go on Google and type in your name and you see things that you'll generally get a list of all your citations, right? And you'll be able to look pretty quickly and find out what needs attention. And that, what comes up from that search is very important, not only in establishing what's going on with GMB, but what's going on with the rest of your directory listings, and how you need to go about managing all of that. It can look like what's here on the right, where you're trying to figure out what to do with each one of these things and make sure they're all correct. And we do this thing called central input, right? Central input of correct information, so that we can put it in once and manage it across everything, so that it's all correct. That's kind of we call that the Yext approach here, but that's how we get that. Because if we were trying to do that, if we were trying to manage 75 directories over there, For 1,700 customers, it becomes just an impossible task. And I think it's just about impossible for one business to do this for themselves. So we try to leverage that input of information, right? Sharing photos across directories is really important. This is another way to share a unique kind of type of content. Lots of people publish articles. Lots of people publish, just small listing information. But when you can share photos across directories, you'll see that those sites, right, those internet properties will eat that photo up and use it a lot of places. We've seen a lot of engagement on GMB, Google My Business, with all these photos that people put in. It rises like a hockey stick. It just goes straight up because Google's, the people who search for this stuff are interested in this kind of content. So it tends to get visible very quick. Online reviews. It is the currency of your online presence today. You can see not only that it shows up in search over here, you can see these stars that stand out. They help a customer stand out in a search that somebody might be doing. You can also see how important it is in the Google My Business listing over here on the right, and how prominent they make that. And you'll see that when you're on a page with other people and you have a 2 or 3 star rating, you're not going to get anywhere near as much engagement as if you had a lot of 5-star ratings or 4 plus, right? Having those good ratings is really important in your visibility, and it's really important in how customers click on it, because nobody wants to hire a roofer who's got a lot of 1-star ratings, right? Nobody wants to hire a siding guy who can't get his customers to say he's good. So it becomes, if you're in business and you want to succeed on this stuff, then you've got to be doing the work really well and finding ways to get customers to say that for you. There's a really important way to kind of make this all work. So there's a bunch of different kinds of online reviews. We think about it really 2 ways. First-party reviews is the stuff that lands on the site. We have a platform where if a customer puts in a review, sometimes they go to the site, sometimes they go to Google, sometimes they go to Facebook. That provides that kind of variability and expanding that footprint in a way that will do you benefit. So we think about first-party reviews and then third-party reviews, which is the Google, Facebook, LinkedIn. There's a lot of different ways that you can post a review, and so when you do that and you grow your footprint, you become more prominent across everything that you're doing. Maps is another thing that's really a great way to leverage the reviews that are going on in your business. Maps is a really big component of visibility, and because it's a really big component of visibility, you want to make sure your scores are right, or else you'll disappear. Customers that don't have a lot of reviews become much less visible in Maps than customers that have a lot of good reviews, for obvious reasons. So Google said that local search on mobile devices is growing faster than mobile search overall, 50% year over year. We've seen something like 2/3 of search now is happening on a mobile phone, and that's going up. So that's not going to get smaller. That's actually going up. So finding ways to be visible locally and finding ways to be mobile and to make sure that the things that you publish interact with the whole mobile approach to things is going to be really important, and again, it's getting more important. 70% in some categories of search is happening on mobile phones. So, kind of more of the same, just kind of driving that home, but you can see the importance of reviews here. You can see the importance of maps on these pages and how prominent they are. And so the things that we do on the site and the things that we do and how they connect with Google My Business and the directories and everything else that we're doing, building that big footprint is what's going to get you visible across everything. And the more visible you are there, the more kind of leads and content you're gonna benefit from. user-generated content, Google has now added this whole idea of questions, and you can ask questions and answer them right inside GMB. When they give you an opportunity to engage, doing so is wise, right? When you get into these kinds of things with when customers have questions and you answer them, you're going to obviously get benefit from that. Not only just because you had one customer who you answered a question for them, but when you're seen in this thing as somebody who pays attention to what's going on, that's another piece of a trust factor that helps, right? And so anytime we can, interact with this kind of content, it's always going to be good for you. So the future of search, and the future is really now. This is what it looks like when you look for a roofing contractor, for instance, on Google. You can see all the locations in here. How local search is now is really important. And then voice. You can see the microphone down here on the left-hand side. People are using voice to search all the time. It's doable on a desktop phone, on a desktop computer. It's doable on a mobile phone. People are using it more and more and more. And so we need to do things that will kind of make that happen. By 2020, over 50% of all search will be voice. That's like next year. We're halfway through 2019, and sometime inside the next year, half of all search will be happening on voice. So how conversational your website content is, how much it answers questions, how it's structured to be able to do the things, to kind of help a customer get what they want when they're searching by voice, that's all going to matter. And so we have to be thinking about, kind of interacting with the machine in that way and as a way to answer a customer's questions, right? So it's all about, we think about, it's not all about voice. It's certainly, there's a lot of physical, properties that we're managing, but we're thinking about voice, right? And because it's changing again, and because there's more voice in this, then we're thinking about that, and we're trying to change with it. And so, that's the kind of the hurdle, and that's the discovery that we're trying to have happen for us. We have many of our customers now that if you went into their markets and asked for what they do, when you say to a Google machine, and you say, show me the best contractor in, XYZ area, we see our customers getting returned as the number one choice in those markets on that voice search, and that's going to become more and more important. So you can see over here, right? What, when, who, where, why. They're asking questions. People are asking the machine questions, and we need to be the answer to those questions. And the more we're the answer, the better off we'll be. So traditional search was all about providing as many answers as possible. Voice search is about providing one answer, which is the best answer. Google is not looking for, here are the top 10 people who can do what this customer just asked for. They're going to be able to deliver on a very local level the number one customer, or the number one really provider of business that you should talk to. And so the better we do that, the more of those searches we will show up in. And obviously the better it's going to be in terms of leveraging the results. Local service ads is another kind of, it's a little bit about the future. LSAs have been around for a couple of years. They're just getting rolled out across the country, and we're kind of hip deep in this thing. We're doing a lot of Google LSA ads with a lot of different categories, and depending on what markets you're in, they matter, to more or less degree. And we find that there's some people in some parts of this country and some verticals that are getting a lot of business from this, and it's not impacting things that you already had in place. It's really just adding to it because of the different places that people find this stuff, and because of the way that Google handles it, it's actually a way to grow your business. So we think LSAs is important. You can see here's a list of the categories. There's an email from marketing at Surefire Local. If any of these categories in this, if you have questions about any of them, or when they become available, or you need to kind of understand them a little bit better, then that's, just send an email to that email, and we'll help you through that. But this is becoming more and more important as we go forward, and we think it will continue to grow. So we have all these things going on, right? We're trying to manage all of this stuff, and we're trying to keep it all working right. And there's a lot of components to it, right? One of the ways that we manage it is inside Google Analytics. We try to measure how people are interacting with the things that we produce. We try to put campaign codes on things that so we can understand them, so we can analyze them. And so it's important to kind of be in there. Google has a thing called Search Console. It used to be called Webmaster Tools, which would help you to work on the actual content that you have and understand what keywords are working and what ones aren't, and how people are searching. And when you can see the actual queries that people are using to come to your site, that helps you to build the right content, right? This whole idea of relevancy comes from understanding how they look and then giving them what they're looking for. So this is a very important piece of kind of how you run this. Directory listings, there's more and more information here. You are definitely increasing local visibility when you do this right. And when you're interacting with all these directories, it helps to be able to look at what's going on there. How many profile views do you have? How many people are asking for directions to your business? How many people are making a phone call to you, right? How's all that working? So Google My Business gives you insights into that as well. And you can see for any given amount of time, you can see how people are interacting with your content, and you can make adjustments to it and follow that through, so you know over here on the left what kind of, what are they looking for. Now you know how to give it to them, right? And that's the whole idea. And then on the paid side, between Google ads, Facebook ads, remarketing, local service ads, there's a different management platform for that. So now, if you're doing this at a very basic level, if you're trying to manage your own internet presence across a pretty basic level, you've got, 4, 5, 6 platforms you're trying to figure out. I've seen as many as 30 or 40 of these things that you're trying to, figure out. If you're in, Instagram, you've got a, place in there. If you want to know what's going on in house, they've got a platform that they'll show you what kind of traffic is being generated there. And it gets to be, kind of a big deal. In addition, you're tracking phone numbers, right? We use tracking phone numbers across everything we do, so that we know how many people are making phone calls on these websites, right? Or, sometimes it's not even the website. Sometimes it's how many phone calls am I getting from, some email that I'm working with, or some other thing. And so, we asked ourselves this question when we built this business back, 8 or 10 years ago. It quickly became big enough that we decided to put it all on a platform. We decided to make it a little bit easier, because we needed to have one sign-on across everything that we were trying to do, so that we didn't have to kind of, stand up all of these platforms and readjust the date ranges and kind of figure it all out. So we created this platform for us, and then there came a point where it became interesting and valuable to customers. So we now take the management of all of this, everything that you see in front of you, we actually integrate into QuickBooks, and we bring Google Ads data into it, and we think about Search Console and GMB, and we take that whole thing and inject those, the lead flow from that into Salesforce. And so all of that becomes now a management platform where you can see everything all at once. And that was the important thing that I think we did that's different from, what a lot of other people out there have been trying to do, right? It makes it so that all these things that we're trying to coordinate and do at scale, we can now, keep track of all of that in one place and understand the relationships between the things I do in the paid side versus the things I do in the organic search and the content that I'm producing and all of that, bring it all together in one place and understand it. And you can see up here on the right, this new update piece. We're actually in the middle of a UI UX, or user experience kind of an update to the platform, where we've done some studies, and we've worked with people to try to make this more and more useful. So that, to me, that's the kind of the big thought here is yes, you need to do all these things. If you're a local business person and you want to get more business from the internet, this is how you do it. We're going to send out a recording of this, and if you want to have a recording, you can kind of review it and make sure you're doing the right things in all of these places. And then we've got the cloud, right? We call it our platform now, and that it becomes a way to do all this management and to kind of make sure it's all in the right place. So with that, I'll turn it back to Amanda, and I think she has a message for you guys, and I hope this was valuable. And again, I think if you have any questions, we're gonna probably take a little bit of time here and answer some questions as well.
All right, thank you, Bob. That was a great presentation. Before we get into the Google Home Hub winner, I want to offer everyone the opportunity to get on a call with Surefire and get a complimentary analysis of your online presence and marketing. So we just launched the poll. Please take a minute to let us know if you're interested. And if you say yes, we'll be in touch with you after this webinar. So we're going to move right on into our Google Home Hub winner. Today's lucky recipient is Sherry Rogala. Congratulations, Sherry. Please email marketing@surefirelocal.com with your full mailing address, and we'll ship that right out to you. So huge thank you to Bob and to all of you for taking the time out of your day to join us. We hope you learned something new, and we look forward to seeing you online on our future webinars. Please take a minute to fill out the survey at the end and let us know how we did today and what topics you would like to hear about in the future. We love checking out the topics you suggest when we plan our webinar schedule. Thanks, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.